Okay, so here we are. We're in the final installment of the video series looking at the BitMEX interface. Now we've gone over a number of different components of this exchange. You should be well versed in the account tab by now, knowing how to deposit, withdraw, and see our account balance reflected from closed positions on our realized P&L. We have gone over the different types of assets that are available to trade, including altcoins, our perpetual swap product, as well as futures. We've gone over the differences between a limit order, a market order, and our stops, and we've seen the various scenarios and how we use them and how it's reflected in our positions tab. We can see our orders in the order book, as well as this nice TradingView integration. Now we're going to skip over and direct our attention to the contract details here. And we're going to do a basic overview of this because we want to give you a primer on a lot of the stuff that we're going to go over in liquidity theory. And that's going to be involving sentiment data around funding, looking at things like open interest, and understanding how that is going to help us gauge future price direction and see kind of who's off sides in certain instances, buyers or sellers. But again, we're going to get into that in liquidity theory. Let's just keep it basic for now. So under contract details, we can see that we have a pricing source, and this is our BitMEX index price. Now, if you recall, when we clicked on this, we can see our index price. Now, the index price is comprised of prices from various spot exchanges that make up the BitMEX index price. Now we can see here 24-hour turnover. This is telling us the value of contracts traded in the last 24 hours. And we can see something called open interest if we move our mouse away. And this is the total number of contracts on the exchange open at this point in time, and it's denominated in US dollar value. Now, if we hover over it, we can see the open value, and this is the total value of futures or options contracts in existence, and that's denominated in XBT or Bitcoin. So we can think of that as 7,968.8328 Bitcoin or XBT. Now we can see something called the funding rate here as we're hovering away from it. And this is an important concept for you to grasp because it's going to be what you're either paying or receiving, whether you're entering into a long or short position. And the funding rate is determined by the index price in relation to the perp swap price. And we can go in here and press more details, and it's going to give us a lot of useful information when it comes to that contract section. And we can see here we have a very nice description. We can see how it's referencing the index price, and we can see the funding calculation itself. And it's important for you to understand how the funding rate is calculated and what it means going forward as we're trying to gauge future price direction and understand some of the sentiment data. And I want to let you kind of go through this yourself. As we've said, it's important to dive into the information available on your exchange so you get a sense of really what's going on in all of the components about it. So that's a bit on the contracts tab itself. Now, if we go back to our trade tab, we can see that all of that is reflected right here. Now, the last thing I want to go over is this little calculator up here, and you're going to start to see this in some of the examples that we go over in the future slides with understanding leverage. But if we click on this, we can see that there's 3 tabs: profit loss, target price, liquidation price. Now, I want to focus on the liquidation price tab because, as we know, we don't ever want to get liquidated, and our stop should be placed accordingly, whether that's below or above the liquidation price, depending on you in a long or short position. but we can see that we can input our quantity of contracts, our entry price, and our leverage, and it's going to give us a liquidation price. And as we know, it's populated here as well, and it also shows us before we execute that in that little box that we see on our trade summary. Now we can go over to target price, and I don't find this as useful, but it's a tool that we can use when inputting our leverage or entry price and trying to calculate it based on an ROE. It's going to spit out some numbers equated on that. Again, long or short, you can toggle this on and off. Now, the profit and loss thing is something that is useful because it's going to help us get a quick and dirty way to figure out the possible P&L or loss on either a take profit where we've reached our exit, say we're in a long position and we're selling out with a limit order, or our stop loss on a stop market. So let's just take 10 contracts at 72.43. We'll use the market price, and let's say we want to exit at 7,800 and our leverage is 3x. Well, we can see the potential profit and loss and ROE here. And we can also look at what our stop loss or percentage loss would be. As we know, we've defined our risk parameters, but this is going to give us the calculation quickly. Let's say we want to be stopped out at 7,100. Well, we would know that that is this on a percentage basis on a long position. So again, just some more resources. These little calculator tools are helpful, but this concludes the BitMEX overview of the interface. You should now have a good understanding of the trade tab, the account tab, understanding the order book, the grouping feature. We all know that this is where our positions are going to show up now. We can see closed, active orders, our limit buys and sells, stop losses, our risk parameters, order history, fills, and we now know that the difference between a limit order and market order is that we are a resting order. As we're creating liquidity, we are using a maker fee here, whereas a market order, we're taking liquidity, being charged a taker fee. And we went over stops, the different stop orders and when they should be used. And lastly, we've now covered the contracts details section, which we did a brief overview of what this all means and how that's going to be important as we move forward into liquidity theory and we look at the sentiment data and things like open interest. So feel free to watch these videos over and over again. We want to make sure that you're comfortable as you sign into the exchange and start trading your own capital and tackling the markets as a trader, implementing your edge, and really taking on ownership of your exchange and understanding everything that it's offering. So that was a very good overview of BitMEX. Again, there's other exchanges out there, but most of them are pretty similar. And we're going to leave it at that, and we will catch up with you in the next video.